There we go. As you can see, for my benefit, I put the timer on so I make sure we don't go extra long. Janelle, look at you. What a team player.
Sorry?
I said, what a team player. Turning on your video. You know.
I just barely got audio. Were you asking people to turn their video on?
I was, yes.
Okay.
Hey, good morning, Matt. Can you see me? It looks like my video.
Do you know what? I cannot, Valerie.
Huh. I'm trying to participate here.
And I appreciate it. Keep working on it.
Okay.
Down in your bottom left, is your video is showing on, or is there a red line through your video?
Oh, there, maybe right here. Here we go.
Hey, look at you. Yeah, this is technical training too. Technical Zoom training.
Okay, good. I'm here.
Okay, Valerie, right. I have met you, so now I see the face again. Good to see you again.
Good morning.
Carrie, good to see you on the call. Bill, I look at you. You're ready to go. You're not even muted, so that means you're ready to fire off. Don?
I thought I was muted. Am I not muted?
No, you are not.
Apparently not.
And look at Don. Don, get your mug back up on camera. Look at that stash he's got going on. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Good deal. Hello, Jen. All right. Well, let's get underway here this morning. So I always like to start off these calls with any recent wins or I always throw this one in there, any interesting experiences.
So Matt, I'm under contract. My buyers are under contract. It's my first one.
Right on, Valerie.
Matt.
So pretty clean deal or a challenge deal?
For me?
No, I mean, just generally speaking.
No, it's been pretty good. I do have another agent from Remax that we're kind of co-listing together. So we're just, she's helping me along the way. So it's been pretty smooth so far. So right I know not all are going to be like that, but
Well, I think you're going to find today's content then helpful.
Okay.
So, all right, we got Dion. Yes, go ahead.
Okay, so I had an interesting experience that you've been talking to us about how to handle our unrepresented buyers. So yeah. I took an upper end listing, and when I was listing with the seller, I explained to him that an unrepresented buyer is an untrained public person that doesn't know what they're doing, and basically, even though I don't legally represent them, that I basically still have to do all the work of the buyer's agent to have the transaction close successfully. And he was great with that, and we moved on. And so I'll just be transparent. So I did 2% for my unrepresented buyer and 3% for the listing side. And so we went on the market. I had an unrepresented buyer approach me. So I showed them the listing, and they came back again on my open house. And then she told me that they were going to send us an offer, and that would be so much better for the seller because there will be zero buyer's agent commission ask of the seller. So I explained to her that that's not actually how it works, that the seller at the time of listing already committed what commission there would be to the listing agent to handle an unrepresented buyer. She said, oh, well, if it's 3%, then I might as well go get my own agent. Is it less than 3%? Yes, it is. So she sent over, a cash offer, a very good cash offer, because now she knew she couldn't just take 3% off the purchase price, right?
Right.
So that was helpful to her. Anyway, so I also received a second cash offer. And so the other cash offer, it was 3% for the buyer's agent. And so as I worked out the net sheet for both of those offers, the second cash offer was a 6% commission, and the first cash offer with the unrepresented buyer was 5% commission, and my sellers were thrilled. And so the transaction closed successfully. And afterwards, the unrepresented buyer told me that she thought I had been so professional and handled the transaction so well, they were so impressed that they would be happy to represent there to refer me to anybody that was going to list or sell or wanted to buy a home, to have them call me because they thought I had done such a great job. So
Look
it was
at
a
you
win-win all the
go.
way around.
So, Carrie Moss, I brought this up on screen in case people were wondering exactly what we're talking about, and I'm doing a horrible job of highlighting it, but you guys get the drift here. So, you know, when we had the national settlement, we on the ERS, we only had a couple of sections, and then a couple months into it, UAR added this section, right? Because we all know it's a reality of what we do in the business, to Carrie's point. And this has been going on. This is not because of the national settlement. We've had people for years and years inserting themselves going, oh, well, I'm unrepresented and therefore I want, you know, a certain amount off of the purchase price. This is just, it's not an abnormal thing that we have dealt with over the years, but it did become formalized because of NAR's settlement with the DOJ. They said that you had to have an agency agreement, right, to show somebody. But then the question came up. It's like, well, what if somebody comes in unrepresented? How do we handle that? And so I love the fact that they actually did add this, right? And I love your approach, Carrie. And you brought up a very nuanced point, right? What was it she said? Well, gosh, what's the amount in? Now, she doesn't know the section, but what she's referring to is what's in section 2.2, right here. And the fact that you had something a little less than what her expectation was continued the motivation for her to allow her to be unrepresented. Now, listen, is your principal broker for maybe half a day more until you get word from Heidi that the DRE has pushed paperwork through. But just a generally concerned person, there seems to be two competing things on this, right? Sometimes people are looking to get their transaction count up. So if they do limited agency, right, you get credit, right? I don't care if it's on the MLS or you're trying to go for your broker's license. I don't know what, or an award with, a major award with Remax. You may want to, you may be trying to get more transaction size. And I'm not going to say anything about that. I mean, it's totally okay, acceptable. But from a risk standpoint, let me just posit something here for you. When somebody signs the unrepresented buyer disclosure, and I'm going to paint with a broad brush here, your risk, your principal broker's risk, the company's risk, basically gets cut in half. And yet section 2.2 is allowing us, because we know we will do work on behalf of the unrepresented buyer, it allows it to, we're allowed to still monetize that. Does that make sense? So depending on what your motivations are, personally, I've done this long enough and I've never really been an awards person so much. I like the fact that I can get out of risk while getting compensation. So that's just a general statement in regards to your situation, Carrie. Thank you so much for bringing that up.
Hey, Matt, do you mind if I add one thing to what you said? So with what Matt was talking about is cutting our risk in half. A lot of times people look at looking at limited agency as that first option. And of course, the client does need they have the right to determine what they want. Do they want representation? Do they not want representation? If a client would prefer not to have representation versus being a limited agent, that's where I agree with Matt, is if we can go the unrepresented buyer route versus being a limited agent, that puts, you're still having to do the same amount of work almost, but the risk and who you represent is cut in half. And it is, I think, a much better approach.
Yeah, here's, Rob, one last thing and we'll move on for sake of time. Anybody who has ever been involved in a complaint with the DRE or a code of ethics violation, or worst case scenario, civil litigation, and if it happens to involve limited agency, which by the way, that's one of the top 3 things that is litigated every year, agency issues, and at the forefront of that is dual agency, limited agency. If you come to a broker like myself and say, oh yeah, I really want to do limited agency, to me, one of the first things it says is, oh, they've never, had to deal with a tricky issue with the division or code of ethics or litigation. Because once you have one or two of those happen and you see the opportunity to reduce risk, reducing risk becomes a very attractive feature. So, all right, enough said. I am going to quickly shift gears to just some information I pulled together. We finished Q3, and as you know, I nerd out on the data that comes across utahrealestate.com. I'm only gonna highlight one area here. So this blue line, as you can see down at the bottom, is the median sold price. And that, in case you're not familiar with this graph, it's quarter by quarter. The most recent one for the entire state is a median sales price of $518,000, right? And all you have to do is count back 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and you can see where we were a year ago. A year ago, we were 506,000 as a median sales price. So what's the takeaway from that? Spoiler alert, I put it up here in my little call out here. If you take 506,000, divide by 518,000, you see that there's been a 2.37% increase in the median sales price in the last rolling 12 months. Isn't that ironic? That's almost identical to what inflation has averaged over the past 12 months. What does that really mean? It's confirming that at least in the last 12 months, we have been a flat market overall. Now listen, there's pockets, areas that do a little better, a little worse, but as a general statement, why does this matter? Janelle, I know you're a socialite. When people, and they look up to you and they say, Janelle, what's going on in the market, right? At least you're equipped with something to say, I don't know, something like this. You know what? It's a little counterintuitive. People hear that the median sales price has gone up $12,000. But when you understand in 12 months, that's only 2.4%, and inflation is 2.4%, it's still a great time to buy because we're still flatlining. But with money getting cheaper, we're going to turn the corner. So if you know anybody, this is where you turn it into a solicitation of sorts. So if you know anybody who's interested in buying in the near term, they really should get after it now, and I'd be happy to help them. Dan, go ahead.
So I'm sure I'm stealing your thunder, but I think it's really important to point out that that 2.3% return is on the entire value of the house. So if you pay cash at $500,000, sure, you got a $10,000 return on that $500,000, which isn't a ton, but you probably financed it at least with a significant proportion, right? You probably put a few percent down, or 10, or maybe even 20. So your return of $10,000 on that $500,000 asset, if you only put down, let's say you put down 20%, which would be, what is that, $40,000, right?
Well, let's just do 5%. Let's do the minimum. That means on 500.
5%. So you put down $25,000, and you got a return of $10,000 bucks. I mean, what is that, 40%? That's an amazing return.
If you do 12 divided by 25, so what we're talking about is the 12% price appreciation versus how much you put down, 25,000, and I'm wiping off any rounding error, but you're looking at, on the money you put into it, right, a 48% return. That's not so bad. So I love what Dan pointed out. Both statements are truthful. It depends on the audience, right? And I'm not trying to be coy. I'm not trying to cloak things. But the first scenario I'm talking about is for a buyer. Is it in fact true that it's a good time to buy if they're ever going to buy in the near future before money gets cheaper and more people enter the market? Yes, it is. Are sellers more motivated right now, especially coming into the colder months, to pay concessions and maybe be a little more flexible on price? Yes, it's true. But at the same time, if you get somebody who their dad's going, oh yeah, real estate's a bad investment, right? It's just kind of flatlining. It's like, well, actually the numbers, even in a relatively flat market, means on the money you invested on it, you got a 48% return on your investment. I don't know.
And that's before tax benefits and all the other things that go along with it. So yeah, even in a super flat market, due to the power of leverage, boy, real estate makes a ton of sense.
Yeah, I'm so glad you brought that up, because we of all people should know how to speak to this. If you don't have those two dialogues with this little bit of data, like at your four fingers, four tips, and ready to just share with people, can I give you an action item? Take something like this, work through it, and share it with 2 or 3 people in your family or your friend group and see if it makes sense, and get it until you've got it to where it just rolls off the tongue, right? You have to make them understand why real estate, whether as a buyer or as a seller, makes sense. And I'm not asking you to mislead, or I just want you to give them facts, and they will be able to get the conclusions themselves, maybe with a little help from you. All right, second data point.
Before we transition, Matt, this is probably a good point to plug Stephen Bond coming in, and he'll be talking about, you know, the 4 pillars of real estate, of investing in real estate.
Yeah.
So several of these pillars apply to homeowners as well, but you know, all 4 pillars apply to, you know, investors. So that'll be. Did we decide on November the 10th, the Monday?
I think that's what we're targeting, but everybody put an asterisk by that. We're trying to just work through some logistics, but it will be in the first half of November if we can make it work. Go ahead, Rob.
Well, I was going to say, I mean, if it's that Monday, it wouldn't be at the Salt Lake board. It'd have to be. It was that Tuesday, which was the.
We will figure out what makes sense timeline wise, and then if we have to meet at a hotel, you know, training room to accommodate. Here's the thing: we want to do it company wide. In case you haven't done this before, Steve Bond did it one time before for us. He has what he calls his 4 pillars of investing, and if you do not have personally an understanding of why you should ultimately become an investor in real estate yourself, or if you're trying to augment your sphere of influence by bringing in some investors, you need to know how to speak to them about the things that they care about. And it's a great presentation. He does a fantastic job, and it points out many of these things that we were just talking about to where it really does make sense. So just look forward to that. We will get an announcement out as soon as we solidify the plans. All right, last thing. I remind you guys of this all the time. Today's Monday. I've asked you, the thing that makes the most sense is to put a calendar event, and I like Mondays because it's the kickoff to the week, and going to utahrealestate.com, go to, on your left-hand side, go to Rapid Stats, come down to the dashboard, and this is what you default to. The only thing I changed was dropping down the list right here from current to give me the numbers versus 365 days ago, and I do it on these 3 big broad categories, which are actives, solds, and under contracts, right? This sounds so simple, and I'm afraid that it's so simple that maybe you're not doing it. I'm just going to ask you again, do it. It makes you, if nothing else, look smart to know what is actually going on in the industry. Now,
Matthew,
yeah, go ahead, Michelle.
What did you say you changed?
So if you can see on my screen here,
Yeah.
When you come in, it just says 30 days ago. And so there's a little drop down list right here where my mouse is bouncing around. If you drop it down to 365 days ago, it will give you the number current versus a year ago. So on actives, we actually have almost 22% more active listings than we did a year ago. On the solds, we've sold 5% more versus a year ago. And under contracts have slowed down. Look at that. We're only 1% above where we were a year ago on solds. So not going to spend the time here just for sake of time, but can you imagine how to take these 3 data points and be prepared to talk to it about with a buyer or a seller, right? That is some juicy information right there. And it was so easy. It was literally 4 clicks. Click to get to Rapid Stats, 3 clicks to drop down to 365 on all of these, and then spend 5 minutes to think, what does that really mean? More inventory. Solds are pretty static, and under contracts, which is our best leading indicator of where we are going in the near term. Wow, not a lot of people are buying, and yet money's getting cheaper and sellers are still motivated. I don't know. If I had buyers in the pool, those are the things I'd be harping on right now. Okay. All right. Having said that, I'm going to stop sharing my screen for a second, maybe. Stop share. All right. So this year we have covered a ton of territory. I mean, we went through the major sections of the REPC and all the details. We went through all of the key disclosures. We went through the significant addenda. We went through things that the DRE is looking for. We went through administrative rules, both the prohibited actions and the affirmative obligations. We've covered a lot of territory. So, good job for sticking it out. Now, what I wanted to go through today was, okay, so what? Now, I don't mean that to trivialize everything we've done previously, but seriously, so what? So what do we do with that information, right? And Valerie had talked about, hey, she's got her first buyer under contract. I don't want to dampen the mood, Valerie. Don't want to be Debbie Downer or Negative Nancy. I can't say Negative Nancy because my wife's name's Nancy and she gets mad when I say that. And if you're a Debbie, I'm sorry, I got to come up with some innocuous name. But if you do this business long enough, you realize almost every deal has a challenge. Anybody want to disagree with me on that? I've told you my one time in 25 years, and I'll give $1 to anybody who remembers the name of the person that was my non-problem transaction from start to finish and just closed in like 10 days. Yep, you didn't remember. Here's the name, Victoria Rose. How could you forget that name? Victoria Rose. What a name. Anyway, so what I wanted to cover is two categories. Knowing the knowledge is super important. Being able to communicate it is equally important, if not more important, and then understanding how to negotiate. Now, we have 36 minutes, so I'm going to rapid fire on what I call the communication toolkit. Maybe we'll come back and deal with that later, but I think it's straightforward enough that you'll get it. If you want the list of these communication things and the negotiation phraseology that I think is important to have at the ready to like make part of your dialogue, I will make that available. In fact, I'll probably just put it up on the training vault so everybody has access to it under contracts and negotiations. Fair enough?
Yep.
Okay, I got one. Yeah. Thanks, Bill. I'm glad you're on the call.
Thank you.
Okay. So here's the thing.
Just a little quick thing too. Like this stuff does matter. So thank you. It just does. It's the little teeny things.
Yeah. Actually, the little teeny things that are way more significant than most agents ever give it credit for. And then they wonder why they're not successful, even if they have knowledge, right?
Right. Even
so
like, I changed one word a long time ago. Have you had the opportunity to meet with a great lending professional or something versus have you had a chance to meet a lender?
Right.
And it was black and white how their response was different.
Words matter. Anybody who's in sales, oh, by the way, all of you should understand the power of language. I don't mean you have to be some highfalutin sesquipedalian. Yeah, you can look that word up. But just using effective language, right? So the first one is active listening techniques. I almost don't want to spend time here other than sometimes when we're talking with the other side. Now, all these situations, I want to picture you being involved in something mildly heated or contested. You're under contract or trying to go under contract. Think of it in that context. How important is active listening? So pause that for a second. How many of you are a sibling? Raise your hand. How many of you?
Yes.
How many of you have a significant other? Right. So what I'm saying is crucial conversations. By the way, there's a great book called Crucial Conversations. It's a good read. But active listening, and I've heard different like real estate coaches say, "Oh yeah, you need to repeat back." Oh, I tell you what. My experience has been, I've learned that people have a very strong filter when they feel like they're being patronized, right? So if Janelle had said something to me, I'm like, well, Janelle, what I just heard you say was blah, 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 blah. You'd be like, listen, mofo, Matt, don't you dare patronize me. You're not going to game me. I'm not going to play your little coaching game. So just surrender. You've got to be authentic as you do this, right? So how easy is this? I don't know. I learned through 36 years of marriage. Maybe it's only the past 10 that it finally sunk in my head. It starts with something like this. Hey, you know what, Janelle, thank you for sharing that. Wow, that was super hard. Write that down. Hey, Janelle, thank you for sharing that. And I don't know, maybe have a little pause so it actually is real rather than right on to the next sentence, right? And maybe the next thing would be, sounds like it's super important to you. Can I just make sure what I heard is what you were saying? And then just say it. How hard is that, you guys? It's not hard, right? And not only that, it's reaffirming a relationship. And oh, by the way, if you're fostering a relationship, is it harder or easier to then deal with difficult things? It's easier. So I don't know, maybe we should follow that approach. It doesn't, here's my observation of a lot of agents in the business. It's instantaneously territorial. You're not going to do that to me. You know what I mean? And unfortunately, we can control our side of the equation and they still may initially react that way. And so you have to have a good filter to not respond in likeness. You know, if Janelle had said, sorry, I'm picking on you, Janelle, you're just center of my screen right now, had said something dicey, I'd be like, oh, hey, you know what? I know this is a tough situation. Why? What is the magic in acknowledging? If you've ever dealt with kids, until they know they've driven home the point, they're going to continue to act out. And guess what? Agents are a lot like kids sometimes. So if all you're going to do is argue the point rather than acknowledge the point, you don't have to surrender it. You're not saying you agree. You're just saying, yeah, that sounds really tough. Now all of a sudden you don't have to make the point to me over and over and over again. So anyway, enough said. Active listening techniques, body language, and nonverbal cues. If I'm sitting there like this as you're telling me stuff, what do you think? What do you think my position is, Rob?
You're closed.
I'm closed. I'm not letting anything in. You can keep talking. I'm not hearing a damn word you're saying.
Yeah, you're on the defensive. You're closed. You're preparing for war. I mean, it's all of the things that are negative.
Right. And instead, if I sit here and as you're telling me things, I'm just giving a gentle head nod. Am I actually agreeing with you, what you're saying? No, I'm not. But I am showing you that it's registering, that I'm hearing what you're saying. So all of these things, and we could spend so much time on all of this, but just reminders of how important these are. Third one, clear and concise language. Oh my gosh, can we just say, even in nonverbal stuff, when you write an addendum, please, please, please get rid of all the garbage, all of the explanatory stuff, all of the fluff. It almost always goes the wrong direction. Purchase price to be increased $10,000 to $600,000. Period. Hard stop. Not purchase price because of blah 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 and blah 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 blah, and a whole paragraph never plays well. Go ahead, Rob.
You echoed it. You see, oftentimes people put a reason why they're adjusting the purchase price. The purchase price to be X because of the paint on the house needs to be redone, so therefore we need a lower purchase price. All of that, you don't need to know the why. It's just you're asking for the purchase price to be reduced.
And in fact, in that situation, I have had this actually happen where you put in the excuses of the why, and then the why doesn't get done, and then you have an argument as to whether the purchase price was ever changed. So you introduced some false variables that didn't need to be there. So human nature is, we want to give the explanation. Can I just give you a proposal? If there's any explanation, it should be on the phone when you're sending over the very clear, concise language, which is purchase price to be $600,000, period, hard stop, right? Or in a cover letter, but not in the addendum, okay? Jen, you and I, and Rob, and Dan, and Michelle, and I'm trying to think of others, I'm sure there are others, Janelle, we've served on board of directors, right? Which is an interesting exercise in communication skills and active listening. But here's the question I would ask you, Jen. When an unskilled person is agitated, do they talk faster or slower?
Faster.
Way faster. It's like, I'm going to drive the point home and I'm going to string a whole bunch of sentences together because I think I'm being persuasive and blah, blah, blah. And all it does is get everybody else agitated. And yes, I'm speaking slowly to show you what calm can look like and the difference, right? If you're dealing with a dicey issue and your voice is going up and you're starting to talk faster, you're swimming upriver, right? It makes it difficult for the other side to buy in mentally, emotionally, let alone the argument itself. So if you can talk calmly and cerebrally, you tend to, it's human nature. There's all kinds of studies on this. People tend to mirror and match. So if you're calm, higher probability they're calm. And when you're dealing with tough issues, isn't that what we want? A calm partner on the other side? Well, you're largely not 100%, but you're largely in control of that. All right, handling difficult conversations. Listen, oh my gosh, I could spend an hour on this one, but I think it reiterates the other. When you've dealt with kids, sometimes you as a spouse or a significant other or your spouse or your parents or a neighbor or whatever, sometimes we don't speak intelligently. And what I mean by that is we fire off a bomb. We go nuclear, right? Because we think we need to drive home how intensely important this is to us. So just a reminder, you can still say a very significant thing in this kind of pace, and it's not going to diminish how strongly you feel about it, right? Or how strongly they feel about it. It's just a different tone. It's like, Bunny, we need to deal with a pretty tough issue. Is there anything wrong with saying that? No. In fact, I love it because you're just addressing the elephant in the room, right? We need to deal with a tough issue, and I have all the respect for you as a professional. So if I get, a little animated, call me out, please. I just want us to get to a successful conclusion on this. Yeah, whatever you say there, right? And really, I'm actually trying to groom her as how I want her to act in the conversation as well. Now, careful you don't cross over this threshold where you come across as talking down, or I'm the skilled orator and I'm just trying to nurse you along because you're unskilled. You can cross that threshold. So it's got to be authentic, got to be real, takes a little bit of practice. Try it a few times with your friends. Hey, if we were dealing with a tough issue and I approached you this way, how would you react? Right? All right, last one. And it's a reiteration, I already kind of harped on it, is your written communication skills. When you write something, I do really believe this is a very good piece of advice, especially if it's dealing with an emotional issue like a negotiation. Write it down, give it a few minutes, come back and read it again and look at it with a critical eye and say, if I was on the other side, how would I react to this? And then maybe even have a friend or a trusted acquaintance read it and get their opinion, right? Because in most of these situations, you're talking $10, $12, $15, $20,000 in the balance. I don't know. Maybe that's worth roping in your broker to take a look at. I don't know. There's an idea.
Hey, Matt.
Yeah, go ahead, Michelle.
A lot of email, or I don't even know, I guess you could probably do it with text, but you can even have, and the only reason I know about this is our son is not very polished and he deals with professionals. And so he very often uses AI or whatever you want to use that will help you you can actually ask it to make your email sound nicer.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
It's brilliant.
Yeah. I mean, even in Gmail right now, Gemini, if you've accepted its help, it will be like, hey, do you want a softer tone on this? Do you want a business tone? So listen, there's literally like no excuses anymore to fire off unless you're just trying to be belligerent. There's no reason why you should send off a poor email, right? So, and Giselle, I appreciate you bringing up that point for people like me who don't have friends to rely on. So I have to rely on artificial intelligence. So thanks.
My pleasure, Matt.
All right. Now listen, for the next few minutes, for the next 20 minutes or so, here's what I want to cover. And I really do want you guys' participation on this. I've got 10 different negotiation phrases. Before we do that, I want you guys to rapid fire. So if you can unmute for 2 minutes here. Not like the extreme. I don't want to deal with extreme cases here. I want, what are the things representing a buyer, representing a seller, working with an agent on the other side? What are the most common things you deal with where it's like, oh my gosh, here we go again. I've got to address, fill in the blank. And then we're going to use that quick list of things as a basis for the phraseology we're going to cover. So somebody get us started. What's one of the most common things you deal with on a regular basis that takes some level of negotiation?
Inspection issues.
Inspection issues. That was on my list too, Carrie. Yeah, right. Isn't it crazy? Because the REPSI that the buyer puts forth in section 10.2 says, this is my language as the buyer, right? When I adopt the REPSI, it becomes my language. And it says, oh, by the way, we're buying it as is. And then we come back with all kinds of, oh, well, you know, the light here and the roof here and the concrete cracked. And anyway, that's a good one. All right, I got that on my list. Somebody else.
Inclusions and exclusions.
Okay. Inclusions and exclusions. Okay. What else?
Price reduction.
Price reduction, either in the REPSI or on a listing, right? Okay. What else?
Going from cash buyer to lending.
Oh, all right. Cash. Well, why would you bring that up? There's a whole story there to unpack, but we'll save that for another day. What else?
What was that one again?
A cash buyer who now wants to go get financing, but that wasn't in their original contract.
Yeah.
Okay, what else? Do we ever run into situations where, oh my gosh, we're not going to be able to get the appraisal done on time. We need to extend the deadline. Or we need more time for inspections, or we need more time for settlement deadlines. Can I just put a broad category, extending deadlines? Doesn't that come up?
Because I think that comes up all the time, frequently.
I agree. Not that I'm in love with my own idea, but thank you, Melissa.
You always have great ideas.
What about just the mere fact of trying to communicate the quality of your client to the seller? Where you got multiple offer situation with buyers, and you're trying to show that your buyer is the better option.
So I'm going to put a quality of the buyer / offered, why ours is better, right? And it may be off the beaten path, right? Okay, I think we've got a good short list. So inclusions, exclusions, price reductions, repair items, cash buyer going to somebody who needs lending, extension of deadlines, and the quality of my offer versus the other guys. All right.
Just multiple offers, kind of the same thing.
Yeah, a multiple offer situation for sure. And they're coming back. They'll be here soon enough. All right. So I'm going to go through, just keep those as a short list. And I may ask some of you to do a quick role play for me. It's not going to be like extensive. It's just to get me from stopping talking and hearing other people who are well qualified. So I'm going to give you the phrase, and then I'm going to kind of give you the why behind the phrase. So the first one, and you feel free to interchange the words a little bit, but I would say try and stick to the phrase as much as possible. Hey, Rob, can we explore a solution? Can we explore an alternative that perhaps works for both sides? First of all, just I want to grade from the group, not how I said it, but whether that language would upset you on the other side or make you more pliable. If it would upset you, raise your hand. This requires you to have your video on. Or would you be like, I'm willing to hear what he has to say? Oh, good. 2 people. Awesome.
Are you wanting to be like hard-nosed, or are you wanting me to be just,
no,
you think like a normal person?
Listen, we can always go to the extreme, right? And I hate it when you do role play and somebody chooses to go to the extreme.
Correct.
We're looking for the sweet spot that covers most situations. So Rob, if I were to say that to you, hey Rob, listen, and here's where you could add to it, right? And I always think this is a good idea. I haven't worked with you in the past, but so far I've actually enjoyed working with you. Is that going to feel contrived? It depends on how you say it, but I could say that to just about anybody I work with, unless they've really rubbed me the wrong way. Rob, I honestly, I've enjoyed working with you so far, but I'm just wondering, is it possible we could explore, a situation that perhaps works for both sides, because we've kind of got competing things going on here?
Yeah, no, I hope we can come together, and I'm pretty confident that we should be able to come to a resolution that allows us both to move forward with our clients getting what they're trying to accomplish.
Right? I mean, guys, that one is just so like, when you hear these, sometimes like, oh, I should use that. And then the second question, at least this is my viewpoint, is like, why hasn't this just been second nature my entire career? It just makes so much sense, right? Rather than, let me give you a compare and contrast. Rob, what your people are asking for, no offense, it's ridiculous. How are you going to react?
Well, Matt, if that's how you feel, you certainly have that right, but it doesn't matter what you think. This is what my clients feel. So
you guys feel the difference in the tone just between those 2 approaches? And guess what? I would say a good chunk of agents choose the latter. They're like, well, that's just not going to work. I'm sorry. That's just ridiculous. And they will use words like that, right? And so you've got to be prepared for that and not get, what's the word these days? Rage baited, triggered, whatever, right? Honestly, just remember, think always. Here's a takeaway from today. Think always that you came from Texas. Why?
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
Because they talk really politely and
No, because when somebody's an idiot, what's the phrase that comes out of their mouth? Oh, Rob, bless your heart. But what do they really mean? You're an idiot. But bless your heart at least takes the edge off in your own head. So I'm just suggesting, when somebody acts out, lashes out, that should be the first thing your mind is trained, because it'll allow you to smile. It'll reset your mentality, and you feel like, even though you're not saying it out loud, just the fact that you say, oh, Rob, bless your heart, it's almost like swearing. At least it expressed some rage for a minute, but it reminds you, you're the higher order species here. You have more skills, and here we go. I'm about ready to help you along, my soon-to-be friend, Rob.
Well, look, I would just say this. We all know we've got 20,000 agents across the state, but we know that 20% of those are the ones that do the majority of the business. So this is really a small industry, and we know people that we want to work with, and we know people that we don't want to work with. So let's make sure that we're on the side that not only people want to work with us, but we treat others that they want to work with us too. So it is a small business, small industry, and your name gets out there if people want to work with you or not want to work with you.
Yeah, 100%. All right, let's move on to the second one. Can you tell me a little bit more about that? Wow, that's another really hard one to say, isn't it? Hey, Rob, help me understand. Tell me a little bit more about that. What is the undertone for that? Do you feel like I'm resisting you at all at that point?
No,
I've opened the door.
You're trying to come from a point of understanding, and so now it gives the other person to be able to continue to talk and it allows you to get a better understanding of what they're trying to say.
Right. Here's the thing. When we take that simple phrase, not only does it help them, it actually is helping us. That's truly the strange thing, right? Because again, I'm driving this point home. I'm not saying you need to surrender a point by any of these things I'm saying. What I'm saying is there are interim steps you need to get to in order to hopefully land at a better place, maybe for both, you and the other agent and both of your clients, right? And so always, what's the line from Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory? Eyes on the prize, Violet, eyes on the prize. Come on. Here's your Harley riding guy quoting Violet Beauregard, or Violet Beauregard's mom, who had crazy eyes. Remember that in the movie? Eyes on the prize, Violet. You guys are just a little dry this morning. I thought that was pretty funny, but that's okay.
Remember,
Thank you. Thank you.
You don't have friends, remember?
That's right. It's true. All right. Now, third one, and we're going to have to accelerate these. I understand. I want to make sure I say it the right way. I understand where you're coming from. Hold the phone. Did I just surrender to any, Bunny, did I just surrender you by saying that? I understand where you're coming from. Now, remember, we talked about body language and the way we say it. What do I communicate if I do it this way, Bunny? I understand where you're coming from.
Oh,
What was I doing with my head?
you were like shaking, like, oh my gosh. I'm just...
Not violently, but it's just, I understand where you're coming from.
Yeah.
I mean, the subtlety there is, I want you to know I'm hearing you, but I'm not across the threshold. You have not persuaded me or my client. Now, sorry, quick editorial here. Please, please, please do not be the agent who acts unilaterally. If you're on the receiving end of something, rather than be like, my client's not going to do that. Listen, unless you have specific instructions, like written instructions, your default should be like, hey, great points. I'm obligated to share these things with my client and discuss. Is that a good approach for the other side? Yeah, it is. What I find a lot of times is the agent actually will just say something like this, and you as my agents come back and be like, I know they didn't even talk to their client. They just answered on their own the way they feel. That should never be what we do. We have a fiduciary of obedience. How can you obey if you haven't communicated with your client? Right? You don't even know what their position would be. Sometimes it just becomes a flex. Okay? All right,
So Matt, I've had an agent do that. And so I am curious because I was really taken back because I thought, you're speaking for the client. You haven't even presented this to them. How's the best way to address that?
I'm glad you drilled down on that a little bit. Listen, none of this is 100%, but what I would do is you got to be careful not to be like, what kind of jackassery is that? You haven't even asked your client. Yeah, that's not going to go very far.
Right.
If you turned it around, Melissa, let's say it's you and me and you are the honorary agent, which was so far from the truth, but humor me. And you just came at me like, Matt, we're not doing that, whatever it is. I'd be like, hey, Melissa, oh my gosh, I know this is a tough situation. Right. I know this is a tough situation. Can we agree on something? Right. First of all, I haven't even addressed it. I'm just asking you if you and I can work together. Right. Can we agree on something? I know I feel strongly about this. I know you feel strongly about that. But at the end of the day, hopefully both you and I agree that our clients have to be the ones to make the decision. Is that fair enough?
I like that. That was great.
What do you say to me at that point? What are the two things you could say? Yeah, you're right. Or no. Right?
That's true.
Right? I mean, I'm just being real world. Some of people can't come off the emotion very fast, and you have to be prepared for that. Right? I'm trying to give you the definition of frustration is unmet expectations. So don't expect that just one nice little salvo is going to change somebody who might be emotionally challenged, emotionally immature. And I don't mean that in a derogatory way. It's just maybe they just haven't developed that skill set yet. So you have to be prepared to help them along more than just once. And if Melissa, if you came back and said no, you're like, wow, hey, listen, I can like even feel a little bit of emotion in your voice, and I get it. I want to get paid, and I know you want to get paid. I want my clients to get a good deal. I know you want your clients to get a good deal. What am I doing? I'm bringing it back to the things that should be governing, right, our non-emotional responses. And I'm trying to drive back on the second half of that, our fiduciaries. I'm trying to tell you, you have fiduciaries without just saying, well, freak, Melissa, you've got fiduciaries. And if you don't do this, I'm going to file a complaint. I'm going to, you know,
Yeah.
I'm just trying to gently put myself in the same boat with you. So I'm not targeting you. I'm collectively saying us, and I'm pointing out some things. I'd be like, I mean, I've got a couple of options here, Melissa. I actually have a lot of trust in you because I know you're a good agent, and I know this is a tough situation. But at the end of the day, if I can't be assured that your client's making the decision, you know, then I've got to find a way to make sure, you know, either my broker's talking to your broker or some other way, because this is so important to my clients. They're going to insist that this message gets carried to your buyer. Right.
I like,
and
yeah, I won't drill down, but anyway, so I love it. Yeah.
Don't take the bait. That's the first part. Don't react
it.
emotionally to their emotional reaction, and just gently point out that we're working together. And oh, by the way, is it bad to remind them that they want to get paid? Right? Especially if you've been under contract for 3 or 4 weeks. It's like, you really do. What I'm trying to say by that is, do you really want to start over? Really? You want to go show them 10 more houses and then compete on 3 other houses and maybe get accepted and then maybe be in the same situation? And gosh, I would rather you and I both just get paid on this one. Let's see what we can do, huh? Sound like a plan?
I like
Okay.
it.
Number 4. My sellers, I haven't told them this exactly, Don. I haven't talked with them exactly, but in some of the conversations I've had, I know there might be some flexibility on X if you can get your clients to give us a little flexibility on Y, whatever X and Y are, right? What does that do? It puts us squarely in that boat of collaboration. I'm not saying, right? Is everybody familiar with the term a zero-sum game? Have you ever heard that, a zero-sum game?
No.
So it's a term that is used, and basically, I'm going to go really fast on this. A zero-sum game means the only way for me to win, to whatever degree, is for you to lose to some degree, meaning it's a fixed pie. There's only so much, and the only way I can get more is by you getting less. That's the definition of a zero-sum game, right? When you add it all together, it's still zero. And so that's not real estate in most situations, right? There's a lot of flexibility. There's a lot of things we can do. The problem is, a lot of times we don't explore what the options are, right? And so this idea of saying, hey, Don, if your people had some flexibility here, I'm pretty sure my people would have some flexibility here. I know we're not committing to this right now, Don, but is it worthwhile you exploring with your clients and mine, and you and me rehuddle and see if, you know, we can rearrange the pieces and make this work? Doesn't that sound like a worthwhile adventure? I mean, you want to get paid, I want to get paid, they want the house, we want to sell the house. Everybody's heads are nodding the right direction. We just have to figure out how the pieces come together, right? Okay, number 5. What if we considered an approach like, so sometimes some of the agents on the other side aren't very creative. Is that a fair statement? Maybe they don't have a lot of experience. Maybe they just don't have that type of a mind. So if you say, just if you left it at the statement of like, what do you propose? Man, the most common thing is, I think they're just going to reiterate their demand. But instead, if you say, what if we considered an approach like this? And that's just, it's seeding the ground for possibilities. You're not locked into it, but at least gets their mind thinking about alternatives. Now listen, this is midway through. Doesn't it sound like all of these are common sense? Do any of these not sound common sense?
Yes, I like it.
Right. And you know, as the phrase goes, common sense isn't so common anymore. So hopefully we can be the ones that bring common sense to the equation, right? And if you go through this list on a regular basis, sharpening your saw, learning some stats, reminding yourself of good dialogues, negotiation phrases, things that help, become a much better practitioner. And guess what? It's not just with the agent on the other side. It's when you're working with a buyer. It's when you're working with a seller and trying to get a listing and they come back and they're like, well, I don't want to do this. All these phrases work in that scenario as well, right? Is it worth us considering blah, 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 right? All right, number 6. Now this one is what I would call a perspective saying, which is let's bring ourselves back and focus on the big picture first, right? And then we can, and the long-term benefits, and then we can figure out the pieces underneath and how we fit them together. My point is mentally get them to bring themselves up to what the original goal is. We want to get a deal done. There are some things in the way. There are things in the way, but let's remind your clients, let's remind ourselves what the ultimate goal is. Okay. Number 7, how much time do we have? Where am I? 2 minutes. All right. Number 7, I think we can come to an agreement if we can just adjust this one detail. You better have that one well thought out, and it better not be a catastrophic one. Otherwise the answer is going to be no. But if you've already talked to your seller or your buyer, and you know how these conversations go, it's like, listen, I wish I could win on these 3 things, but they've got a little bit of transaction fatigue. And you'd be like, what's the most important to you, right? And they say, it's this. What if I went to the other side and said, if you can give us traction on this one item, I think we can make the deal happen. Is that the way it goes a lot of times? Yes, it is. Most people know they're not going to win on all fronts. And so have a conversation with them, then go back to the agent on the other side and be like, I've had some tough conversations with my client, Susan, and I just want you to know they're willing to give a little. If we can get traction on this one item, I think we can get this deal across the finish line. And yes, words matter, Bill. Finish line. Most people want to finish things. Most people want to win. So yes, I do use words like that. Let's see if we can get this across the finish line for our clients. Okay. Number 8, we really value this. I really value our relationship. I know that my sellers value the fact that your buyers came in goodwill to the table, and we want to make sure that we continue the good feelings. We're going to have to negotiate some things, but I just want you to know out of the gate, Rob, tons of respect. Does that feel contrived, or does it feel sincere? I'm addressing we still got issues. I'm not saying, I'm just saying, but I just want you to know, ton of respect for you and your clients, and I'm pretty sure we can navigate this. They call that future pacing. They call that setting expectations. They call that being optimistic. Why not use it? All right, number 9. Could we find middle ground on this point? Somebody just died. And you know what? This is the age-old story from the Old Testament. You know, Solomon, wise old Solomon, let's split the baby. Sometimes that is a little bit of what happens in these transactions, right? And then the last one, appreciate your patience as we work through this. Man, this has been tough, right? Savannah, Dee, it's been a tough deal. And I can't tell you how much I appreciate you and your client's patience, because, you know, a lesser agent or a less willing client might have given up. Thank you. Have we resolved the issue yet? Nope. I'm just telling you along the way, and it's called emotional buy-in, right? It's a lot harder for Dee to come at me after I pay her a compliment and tell her she's patient, for her then to not be patient, right? First of all, it should be sincere, but the unintended consequence is it's also a setup so that Dee is more patient going forward versus less patient. So that's what I have for you this week. Like I said, I'm going to work with Aaron Menard to put both the communication skills reminders and these negotiation phrases up on the training vault under contracts and negotiations. So if you want those and you want to use them as part of your sharpen the saw, you know, each week or whatever your time frame is, I think it would be worthwhile. I always liked these things when I was a practitioner before I went into a meeting to just remind me, right? Our mind gets cluttered with a lot of things in this day and age. and having it just a quick hit list to remind ourselves before we go into a crucial conversation is crucial. So any final words, Rob, words of wisdom?
No, I think everything you talked about was spot on. Well, the thing I would add, it would take more time onto it. So we can just save that for another day, but I appreciate the comments and learned a lot. Thank you.
All right, guys, listen, go out and have a great week, and we will talk with you soon.
Thank
See ya.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.